Hey, and welcome to another Firefly beading tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how I make our wrist malas here at Firefly. This is just a take on a traditional mala, which is 108 beads, but we are only using 27 beads in this version. You can make it with two types of tassels. So you see here we have some with beads, and we also have one using embroidery thread where we've made a tassel like this. And I'm going to show you how to do both of these today. Some materials you're going to need are some good cutters if you want to do use the embroidery thread. Then we also have 27 8mm beads, and then maybe a 12 to 14mm bead that will pass through the S-Lon right here 4 times, and these pass through twice. So about a 1mm hole and then a little bit more. This is S-Lon TEX210. It's very sturdy. And you're also going to need a lighter to singe the S-Lon as you work with it. And then in some, just some embroidery thread if you want to make a tassel like this guy. All right. There is one other thing you're going to need. If you're going to do a tassel like this, you're going to need some of these little beads as well. That'll fit onto the S-Lon. A ruler is helpful, and of course, you do need a collapsible eye needle. We have packs like this at Firefly that come with different thicknesses of needles, but we're going to be using a slightly thinner one, not the thinnest, just on the thinner side. I've got a few needles left in this pack. All right, then we just want to clear everything off after we've cut 8 feet of the S-Lon. So I'm just going to measure out 8 feet here and use some nice cutters to just cut through that. And then of course move everything out of the way because we're going to need some room here to work. All right, so first we're going to take our needle here, and you can see the eye. So this is a collapsible eye here. Just going to stick some of the S-Lon through on one side, and I'm going to try to bring my needle down to the middle of the thread. And in order to do this, I need to, I like to match up both sides here, or both ends. So I put them together. And then I kind of pull tight and hold everything as I pull down. Things are going to try to get all wonky on you, so just gently pull things down as you work. And be careful not to fray your thread as you work, because sometimes this wire on these collapsible needles can scratch the thread as you pull it down. So just gently work with it. Whoops. We want to pull everything at the same time. So see how I'm keeping it tight? I'm pinching it and pulling both threads at the same time until I get to the end here. All right, here we are at the end, and I'm going to put what's called a double overhand knot. So you see I just like to crisscross like this, form a loop with a cross like this, take my tail and go under from the back. And that's just a single. Now I'm going to do one more time, so take my tail, put it through the middle again, and pull down. And this is the double overhand. So I'm just going to put a double here, and this will help keep our beads from falling off. And I want to keep it as close to the end of my thread as possible. Now I'm going to go back down by my needle here. And we're going to start by putting our guru bead on, which, if you want to call it a guru, or you can just use your bigger bead here. Guru is a traditional name in a traditional mala. But now we have our 27 8mm beads that we're going to thread on behind this larger bead. So we're just going to thread them all on just like this. And remember, the larger bead has to be able to pass through this cord 4 times. Once everything is on, you can see our needle is on this side, and then our knot is on the other side. We need to slide down our large bead down to the knot, so you'll see the knot here. And then I like to measure out about 11 inches. So from the bead to there is about 11 inches. And I'm just going to put a knot right here at the 11-inch mark. So here we are again with the overhand knot. We're just going to do a single overhand this time. So over, under, and through, and then I like to kind of pull things. Don't pull the knot tight till I feel like it's close to the 11-inch mark. It doesn't have to be exact, but close to it is good. So here we are, we just pull it all tight, and this is what we got. Knot here at 11 inches, and then a knot at the end. All right. So let's move all this out of the way, and we're ready to start knotting our mala. All right, so we're gonna put the needle side, keep that out of the way, and work on this side first. So we have our knot we just put in, and now we need to put a knot right behind this bead. So I'm gonna slide my beads down a little bit, have some room, do an overhand like before. This time I gotta bring everything through, so just go carefully. Now you need to cinch your knot down to the bead. It doesn't have to be super tight next to the bead, but close to it. So see, I'm not pulling it tight yet. As soon as I'm close, I'm gonna take these 2 threads from the inside and pull hard. And you'll see this tightens everything up nicely. And we're just gonna repeat that process. So we're gonna pull it down, push the bead as close as you can to the other knot, do an overhand and gently pull everything through. Cinch the knot, whoops, here we go, and then gently pull down the knot. You don't have to pull it tight again until you do this part right here. So now give it a nice tug, and it's nice and tight. Don't be afraid to pull this S-Lon to get everything tight because it's a very strong cord. So just repeating this, so bringing that knot down, just wiggling it. Whatever you can do to get it down. This is no tool knotting, so I've got some other videos where I show you how to use a tool, but if you don't want to use a tool, this is an easy way to do it if you've got 2 strands inside. Now let's say we're gonna do a knot, and you're pulling everything through, and your knot just doesn't get close enough to the bead. So it looks like this. So don't pull it too tight yet. You can gently pick at it to pull it out, and then push it a little bit further. But say you're having trouble and you just cannot get that anywhere close. That's all right, just really yank on it. And if you yank on it, look what happens. The knot goes right up. So just repeat this process. Don't be scared if you get too far away from the bead, but do try your best to get as close as possible. But it's not the end of the world if you can't. All right, so I've sped this process up and we're at the last few beads here. I just want to show you one more time before we get to the end how I do this. I like to spread these 2 pieces apart in the loop and then pinch the knot and pull the 2 threads. So again, pull everything through. It gets a little bit harder as it gets longer, but pull those apart, pinch the knot. Preferably not with your finger in the way, so pinch the knot with your opposite hand. Yep, and then pull apart. Here's our last bead. We're gonna do that one more time. Finish it out with this knot on the very end. So just like we've been doing, pull it all through, pull apart, pinch the knot, and then pull apart. And then what I like to do, because it's a little bit tight after we've done all this, is I just like to stretch it, kind of pull and stretch my knots. Typically they don't really pull that far apart because it's nice and tight when it's knotted, but this just relaxes it a bit. And now you'll notice we've got a knot on either side of this strand here. So a knot and a knot. And we need to put one right between those. So one way to do this is by doing an overhand knot like we've been doing and pulling through everything like this, and then pulling that knot up very tight against the beads. However, that can be a very difficult process. It is a nice look to it, but if you don't want to struggle with that, getting everything even, then I suggest just doing a square knot like this. So over, under, and through, just like you're about to tie your shoe or a bow. And then over, under, and through. And that's a square knot. And we're going to pull that tight. So it's not as pretty as an overhand knot, but it's way easier to deal with this than an overhand knot if you're new to this. So you want to pull everything tight, and then you want to pick up your needle side, and you want to stick the needle going down towards our very first knot, so away from our other beads, through the big bead, and pop that in. So just like this, pulling it all down gently. Sometimes it can get tight if the hole is, you know, snug. We want to make everything tight up against that square knot, and then I'm going to pull apart the two sides of the thread. So let's see. Sometimes this gets a little tangled. Just have patience with it. All right, so we got our needle side and then our knot side. And we're just going to leave it like this for the moment. So now what you need is something to create your tassel on. This little piece of cardstock, which has like a little thing in it, whatever you have to make it the size that you need it to be. So you see that tassel was about the size of this square. So it's like a piece of cardstock or cardboard, anything that's nice and stiff but still bendable is something that you can use. And we're just going to gently take off the things from the embroidery cord and find out which side. There's usually two tails. See which one comes off easily. So this is the one that comes off. That'll be nice and easy to get out. But I am going to just go ahead and cut some of this since I've already pulled off a lot of it. And I'm going to cut about 18 to 20 inches depending. 18 should be plenty. And we're just going to set that 18-inch piece to the side and deal with that later. So go back to the side that comes out easily, I should say. And we're going to start wrapping it around our cardstock with the little piece down. Whoops. So our first tail is going to be down beyond the cardstock like this. And then we're literally just going to start wrapping and wrapping and wrapping this embroidery thread. And you don't have to do it super tight, but just like a nice easy motion you'll see on both sides here. You can make your tassel as thick as you'd like, as long as you like, as short as you like, or as thin as you like. So that's the fun thing about making your own tassel. For this purpose, I'm just going to use up our whole skein of thread here. And even though I tried to pull the right one, sometimes this happens, so just be patient. Gently pull. If you don't pull too tight, you'll start to see where you need to pull in order to get your knots undone here. So just a little bit at a time. If it gets really bad and your cord seems thick enough, you can literally just cut that piece off. But if you want to work with everything, then just have patience and gently pull and wrap. So we're getting towards the end here, and we're at the end, so you can see this little tail here can't quite make it all the way around. So I'm just going to let that hang down like this. So we've got our two cords hanging down, our tassel looks like it's ready to go. And what we want to do first is take our mala threads and the side with the needle, we want to pass underneath this half of the threads. So put it underneath all those threads on the top. And I like to just pull it all closer here. So you just got to get a good handle on your threads. There we go. And then I'm just going to tie a loose, overhand like this. So just like I'm about to tie my shoe. Let me reposition here. And I'm just keeping it pretty loose so that I can gently slide this off. And this is why you want it to be somewhat flexible, whether it be cardboard, cardstock, whatever, so that we can bend it to get this off. This is probably the hardest part here. You just want to keep everything as flat and still as possible. I'm just separating the middle, basically clearing out the strands from the middle, make sure everything goes in the right place. And then I want to take my thread here, and depending on how you tie your knot, you want to bring through one side so that you can pull the knot tight in the middle here. So just like this. All right. And it should look something like this. You want it to be directly under that big bead, so right in the middle of your string. You don't want to tie your knot on the side or on the top. You want it to be underneath, like directly underneath that large bead. So I'm pulling it pretty tight here. You can see it's kind of in the middle. And I'm just gonna do a square knot, so just one other little overhand like this, and then pull it down pretty tight. And again, making sure everything stays in the middle as I pull tight, and I mean tight. Once you've got a knot there, a square knot, we're gonna do an overhand knot. So over, under, and through the middle. Spread it apart, pinch the knot, and then pull that. Just like we were knotting with the beads, we're gonna take these two strands and pull them apart. Tight, like pull tight. You might hurt your fingers with this because this is sharp thread, so be careful with that. But once you get your knots tight, you're ready to cut off the tails. And then you can take your lighter. Careful not to burn yourself or the other threads. You just want to get those tails and then hit that with the edge of the lighter. Try your best not to breathe in the steam that comes off, the smoke that comes off of that thread, because it is nylon and it's not good to breathe in that smoke. But once you've got that all secured, you're going to try to tuck that inside the middle and play with the tassel a bit till everything looks nice and smooth and you can't see those knots hidden in there. So just like this. Now we want to take our little string that we set aside, so about the 18-inch piece here, and we want to form a little loop like this. So just simply fold it at this point here. I'm grabbing my tassel nicely, keeping it all together, and I'm just gonna have a little tail on the top here, the loop underneath my thumb, and then my long tail right here on the bottom. And the way I want to do this is start by wrapping, like I'm pinching everything together nicely, and I'm going to start wrapping my large tail around nice and tight. So just take your time with this, and we're going to basically coil. So keep wrapping it, not on top of the one before, but right below it. So we're basically coiling down towards the bottom of what is going to be our tassel. So you can see how I'm trying to hold everything with my fingers. Keep everything pretty tight. You can see the loop there that we originally started with, and we're just coiling down towards that loop. So here's that loop so you can see it better. But you don't want to get that caught, so I'm going to tuck that back away. And you're going to coil down as long as you'd like. You can make it be a very long neck or a short neck. We'll call this a neck. But I'm doing maybe about 10 to 12 wraps here. But I've got a nice ombre effect going on here, actually. Doesn't always work out like that. But when you're done, you can lift up your loop and then stick your long tail through that loop. And then gently pull this little string that we started off with as you pull down and position that bottom one. So just a little bit of back and forth to get everything nice and tight. You want to keep pulling this little string and then both together to get it tight. But watch out here. Make sure that knot doesn't slip out on that other edge. So you want to have it right in the middle, and once you've got it there, give that a good snug tug on both sides. And once that's nice and tight, you can cut off this short little piece right here. And then reposition everything as needed, and you'll see what this kind of looks like. And so now we're ready to cut the tassel, and I've seen a lot of people use a piece of tape like this to try to get a nice clean cut. And so we're gonna try that today with and it's nice to have some sharp cutters as well, scissors. But anyway, we're gonna try this today. I'm gonna try my best to get this thread to fall like I need it to, although it's all kind of curled up on itself. But a lot of it looks pretty good, so we'll go ahead and start this tape on the bottom. So I'm just wrapping it around tightly like this, kind of catching all the strands here. And then I'm just gonna do a nice clean cut right across here. All right, look at that. So that did help. It kind of kept the thread in place, but this guy must have been folded in there somehow, so he's pretty long. Let's cut him off. And then kind of just check your tassel and see if there's anything else that needs some trimming. Looks like this tan one here and a few of these. All right. Overall, that looks pretty good. And I'd say this one is done, so you could see how that tassel is not too bad. Just have patience with it and you can get it done. But if you don't want this thread tassel, another fun thing to do is the beaded tassel. So here's an example of the beaded tassel again, just to show you. You can have it long, short, whatever. But here's a piece where I already put the knot at the top, and now we want to secure this bead. So we're not adding the embroidery tassel, we're going to do something different. So right here, I'm going to do an overhand knot. Running through. And remember, we want to pull that apart and then stabilize our knot as we pull the string down. Pull our pieces apart and pull again to make sure that knot is tight. We didn't need to do that with the tassel part, but we do need to do this with the beaded tassel part. Okay. So once you've got that, it's time to get your beads together, and I've got a few brass beads here. You want the holes to be long enough, or big enough that you could fit the S-Lon through just once. So you could see here we've got our old knot and our needle, so we just want to cut those off. Remember, save your needles, because most times you can reuse it. Just depends on the type of needle, once again. But here we go. I'm going to do a bead like this, which has a very large hole actually, and then I'm going to take this bead, which has a slightly smaller hole. But you can see how they fit through there nicely. Now if you have a nice small hole, you can just do an overhand knot and tie it up. But you know, actually my holes are slightly bigger than I would want for just one single overhand knot, so I'm going to do a double. So here we go. Just crisscross, then under once and under twice. And now you just want to position this knot wherever you want to position it. So I'm going to put it about a finger length away. Oops, you got to really pull hard. There we go. So popped it in place, and see how my bead doesn't fall over that knot? So that's perfect. I'm just going to trim this and then take my lighter, gently push that down, blow on it, or use the lighter itself. And we're going to repeat that process. So for this next tassel, I can have it be longer than the first. But I think I'm going to keep it about the same length as the first. I'm going to keep them all about the same length. So again, I'm doing the double, and then I'm going to cinch my knot down and have it be close. So I'm not pulling too tight just yet, just kind of getting it there, and then checking it by the other strand, and it looked pretty good. So that's what I like to do with that, and keep them all kind of the same. But after you've done this, you might notice a little bit of trimming needs to be done. So I just cut off a lot of the edges that might, you know, flare out once we burn it down. But once you've got everything done, again, try not to breathe in that smoke, then that's it. So you can see there's two types of tassels you can do with these wrist malas. Literally anything you want you can do with these, and these are just fun little pieces that you can use if you have anxiety. It's almost like a fidget thing, but it's also meditative. If you're into using malas, there's actual meaning behind them. Whatever you use it for, it's just a fun and easy piece to make. But if you have any questions, please do leave those in the comments, and I'll try to answer those when I can. Thank you so much for following tips and tricks here at Firefly. Happy beading.